There are different techniques, different ways of different purposes, different tools, and different ways that you can try and understand what the stakeholders or the SMEs are up to. So you can, for example, there are a lot of ways that you can try. There are a lot of objectives of asking a question. So is it for analysis? Is it for checking or validating something? Is it for classification? In fact, we did what we call as a card sort exercise. Again, for the same project that I was mentioning, the financial planning product, we did a card sort exercise because we want to understand the terms and terminologies of the financial planning industry, which is different from the normal ones and from the traditional products. So dimension, we used some terms. So we actually initially it's called something called as a first term thing. So it's a game that we play. So we tell them what do they think about the product, about the particular term, what comes first to their mind when they hear the word, let's say dimension, analysis, or something like, for example, quarter. What comes to their mind? The first thing they should immediately say that. So, and then after that, we did the card sorting where we asked them, we gave them cards of these menu, whatever is there on the menu, in terms of the main terms, report, quarter, analysis, dimensions, or all these things, structure, organization structure, whatever. And then we wrote all these terms in normal cards, and then we gave these cards to the people and then asked them to sort these cards in terms of the order of how that would appear in terms of either ascending or descending or grouping the cards. So they would say they would go about doing that, and that's called card sort. That actually gives you an idea how what is in their mind, how do they group things logically, right? So in fact, that would help you to come up with a menu for your website. If you're not clear, we should do a card sort exercise that would help with the users. And defining, sometimes you would need to understand the definition, as that's what I was saying. So what do dimension for you mean? So dimension for you and me would mean something. There's dimension for these financial planners would mean something like time is a dimension. And then, for example, there's another dimension that they call as the aspect of financial quarter is basically, that is a dimension for them. That's not a time, it's a different thing. And then reporting dimension has got different thing, whether it is for sales forecast or for the demand is another dimension. So all of these are different dimensions. So what do they think? What is their definition of this particular term? So we need to understand the domain. So a doctor's way of looking at a word called dimension is completely different from an engineer's understanding and definition of the word dimension to that of a business person, right? So we need to get this one if you're trying to understand or develop something. So again, to help me understand this better, can you please define the term? Or you can say, as we just discussed, would you share with me your understanding of what we just discussed, to just kind of reiterate to see if they have got the exact same understanding as you got. Or you can say that if you want to say, some of the questions that I typically ask is, can you tell me what you did in the last couple of days as part of your work that is different from the usual stuff? So basically something like a different, you've got a typical work day and something that is not a typical one. So that will immediately they start talking about, and then you say, how did you go about doing that? What happened then, blah, blah, blah. So you're talking about the experience of doing something. So were you able to complete the task? No, what happened? You got break because of something, some disturbance, or is it because the software did not work? Blah, 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 all of those. So these are the different ways that you can try and use the examples of, can you describe a typical scenario to which this requirement apply? Can you tell me if you were given a, for example, again, there are some ways that you say that if you had a magical wand, what would you, can you tell me the top 3 things that you would like to create and share in this world, right? So those are things that there's a wish list kind of a thing, which is wants. They want this, they want that, they want dreams, right? So yeah. So those are that kind of question. So depending on what you're trying to get out of their mind and elicit from these respective stakeholders, the way you ask the question differs, because each of them has got different purpose and different connotation to it. And similarly, can you tell me an example of this, right? So you want to illustrate, you want to actually talk about furthermore. So so supposing they say that, oh, I have seen a lot of people not following what they say. So this is a usual case here. It's a very generic, very usual thing that I find in this organization. You say, oh, is it? Okay. Can you tell me an example of when did this happen last time? Maybe in the last month or so. Did you have any experience of this? Can you give an example? Then they say, oh yeah, this happened with John when he came here. This is what he said and blah, blah, blah. So essentially that means that it is actually they're not just trying to say something out of thin air, but there is some base for which what they're saying. And then prompting and probing, very important. You need to understand when you need to probe. So exactly, interviews are really helpful for that, because I find these interviews to be the places where you can deep dive into some things where you're not clear, or you can actually just touch upon something, skim through, and then move on to the next one. So if you want to really probe further, then you can say, can you give me more examples? Can you tell me instances where this happened? How was your experience like this? So all of these are important for you to kind of give an indication of how you can really perceive something which you were not clear before, and then you can go in depth into that. So, and sometimes redirect. So redirect is again like if they're going on a tangent, you try and take a completely different path to what it is being said. So you want, instead of saying that you stop, you just say that can we now move on to a different one, or can we see it from a different angle, right? So restating is basically you are trying to give a feedback. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this what you're trying to say? Did I get you right? In other words, can we assume that this is what we are required to do, blah, blah, blah. So all these ways we're trying to show that we are listening, and we are trying to ascertain whether our understanding is aligned to what they are saying, right? So that's verification again, all of these. So depending on what you would like to do and what you would like to get out of these elicitation exercises, you would need to structure your questions, your techniques in that way. So again, we talk about the purpose, collaborate. There are different types of elicitation. Again, we've got collaborative exercises and collaborative ways where, like brainstorming, for instance, workshops, they're all collaborative where you're trying to engage all the people. Writing is another one, not brain stroking. So brain writing is where you, instead of you just talking, you ask people to first take a post-it, just pass the post-its, and then ask them first, everyone in the room. If there are 20 people, ask all of them. Brainstorming, there's one better than that, which is brain writing. So brain writing, in it's the way that it's structured is you would encourage people who are usually like introverts, who do not want to take initiative, who get influenced by somebody else's opinion. Very strong people, if they're there, they can try and push their agenda, their views onto others, that rub their views on others. So in order to avoid those kind of things, better to actually have the brain writing. So first of all, the first thing you do is you pass these post-it notes or index cards and ask people to write the top 3 things, top 5 things, good or bad, and all that. What do they think? What do they think? How can we improve this? Blah, blah, blah. So that gives all of the people to express the opinion. Very short, simple, small, sharp set of words and sentences, and that's it. And you give them some time, about 15 minutes. Once they're done, you collect the cards, and then you ask them, why do they think? So read out each of them, why do they think? And then that's a better way to actually get everyone in the room talking, and not just the people with the loud mouth, or the people with the high power. So research, again, is another way you can research. You can try and fathom into some of the things, deep dive, probing. All of these interviews, all of these would really help to get information, document analysis, and secondary research, as what we say. If there are already some manuals, some systems there, going through those would actually help you familiarize with what is already there. Experiments, obviously, you can help conduct some kind of experiments when you have 2 groups, focus groups, or 2 different usability test groups, and you have A/B testing and things like that to kind of ascertain whether one is right and the other one is wrong, kind of thing. Proof of concept, prototypes, for example. All of these are ways to judge whether one approach is working over the other. Or you can just say, I'm not clear whether this technology works, so I'm going to do a POC, a proof of concept, and see if it is working. And then you actually time box that to, for example, 2 weeks. I'll set aside, the team will work on that, on this POC. End of 2 weeks is where we will get. We'll see if it is working. We'll go with that. Otherwise, we'll have to find a new way to do that. So piloting and this kind of prototyping, wireframing, all of these would